Hey Joycey, I'm going to try to explain this without having this on watercolor paper. I just printed it on Xerox, so obviously I can't do techniques without messing up the paper because it's just Xerox paper. But I can explain pretty much what happened. First of all, the splatter was stunning, and you're right, this area is interesting. In fact, everything from about here over is fabulous. What happened though is everything from there down became very uniform, and not only were the lines the same all the way around, like I said on Rodney's, but it's as if the same brush were used. So it looks like the same brush did the whole, and then the same brush went here, and then the same brush went there. And it was sort of like methodically going over the carbon lines somehow, and then maybe another brush did the green. It just felt uniform and linear, but not linear in a lost and found way. Generally, the lost and found on this project is reserved for at the end. Maybe a pencil, maybe colored pencil. That lost and found. If you do a lost and found with flat brush, it actually is better than using a round brush, but it takes a lot of skill and experience to get that ribbon effect. So we don't really want to use the brush to make lines on this project. We only at the end maybe use these, but line is overused so much that we wait to the end. But what I wanted to show you, since I can't really do it on regular paper, I'll do it right here on just watercolor paper. What you can do with a flat brush is a few things. The main thing, and in this project you really don't want to use round brush at all. In fact, most watercolors don't have that. But the thing we want to do in these negative space areas is shapes of even wash. Just like on that back bottle I was talking about, like if the whole bottle were like this, it shouldn't take you more than about 5 seconds to do the entire bottle. That's even wash. That's quick, flat brush application. Same thing in this project here. It's the same thing. Instead of doing that and getting this bottle that's flat as opposed to the sketchier, brushier ones, it was just a third bottle that had a lot of this, what they call brush painting, which is fine. But brush painting always feels like it takes a longer time. And I think a lot of artists think if they put more time in, that's better. But that's not the case. With watercolor, it can be very quick. And then if you come back in and keep and keep and keep, that's how you get those weird blobbies. And we don't want it to look overworked, but it certainly can look like a brush painting, but then you don't want to put that next to another one. Same kind of thing here. When we're doing the lost and found line, we don't want to rely on the brush to fit a space around. We want to be able to take a brush and create this lost and found ribbon, which is you press, spin, spin, in and out and in and out. And that's kind of like unique in a picture, but you can see that's what you want to get. And that's actually easier to get with a flat brush than to try to do it with a round one, because the round brushes really are for linear marks. So it's like you end up with this line that's the same all over. Now if you want to do a lost and found line with a paintbrush, you have to vary not only the pressure, saturation, the amount of paint, all that. It takes a while to get that. So it's pretty difficult to do this project with a round brush to create the lost and found line. So basically, once you have your splatter and you have your transfer, the goal of this whole project is developing the negative space, not the edge, just the negative space. So that's deciding to use one hue or the other. So I'm going to use a angled brush, which is really pretty much a flat brush, and I'm going to go in with this green. Since you didn't oversaturate, you still have options, but you have to be really selective about how you do it. And of course, you already got the extra credit. But this line is what we call a wobble. There's a wobble. It's like those hot air balloons where I did the demo and somehow you had a halo. So this is really good practice to get rid of that. We don't want this back and forth line, because the back and forth line is like, I don't know if you used a flat brush or what on that, but a back and forth wobbly line is like this. And it may have been because you wanted to show the softness of the candy or whatever, but it doesn't read that way. It ends up feeling like a mistake kind of sometimes because it's real wobbly, and it tries to be less uniform by going side to side, but really it's still a halo of a line. No matter how you do it, if it's on or behind the way that Roddy did a big one behind, same thing. Same brush, same placement, whether it's fast or slow, you get this, it's like a wobble line. And with watercolor, you want to have things look like you did it in 2 seconds. Broadly, quickly, confidently. Boom. Fast. But even so, we don't want to do it anyway. So we want to clean up this wobble so it doesn't go in and out and have this vagary. That's why up here we feel more comfortable. There's a little here, but it feels different because it blends in and it's just more interesting. Down here we have sort of, I guess you'd call them like insecure, hesitant lines that took too much time and didn't need to. And then there's these green ones that tried to do more defining of those. So it's just sort of like this uncomfortability that we need to address. So main thing is this is a wobbly line with one brush, then you got in orange, and then you have this greenish pointier line. So you've got 2 lines and they're sort of competing. What's lacking in this whole thing is shapes. These are great. Those are there, they're done. You don't need to express them anymore. But other than that, you've got some good stuff happening, but we just need to do something here. So of course, lots of options. And none of this is critical. This is just pointers, ideas, and things that I observe just as a watercolorist, just things like that. So we want to clean this up and we want to get rid of this because it's not doing too well. So I'm going to go with the green. Best way to get rid of an edge is to pretend it's not there and paint a negative space. So the thing now is pick a few things to paint as a shape. A shape. Starting by pressing your brush, pulling it out. Shape. Now if that doesn't work, and you can see it didn't quite take, you can go a little bit darker. Now I'm going to be doing some wet and wet here because I don't want this to be solid because this is so loose and ethereal-ish. So I'm just going to go darker. Remember, this is not watercolor paper, but I just want to show you how you can go dark enough to mask at least part of this line into a shape. It's not taking the paint, but you want to do it until your value saturation gets rid of that edge. But you don't have to go all the way. You can do dry brush, you can do drip, you can do whatever, just to soften that. And then find another spot to do that. Get in there and quickly reshape. We want to get rid of these green lines and the wobble. Now look, by doing that, look how cool already this is. You can go bolder now. It's like so much opportunity. I'm not looking at the picture anymore. This is just decisions, aesthetic decisions. Like another way to get rid of this orange is to just go further in. But this is all flat brush. I wouldn't do round brush at all. Now look how crisp that's getting. Now we're getting closer to the cool stuff that's happening there. I have to balance this though. 1, 2. Let's see, what's another opportunity for me to do this? I don't want to touch this because it's really great. So what I can do is do a little bit of a wash or dry brush here. In fact, dry brush might be good. And you know how fast that is. We talked about it on the balloons. You can't do it the same, boom, 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 all the way around. You have to spread it out, get it up and around. You can't just go, like when you do dry brush, you don't want to go like this. Because all that does is create another halo, just like on Rodney's thing. It just uniform. So when you do any dry brush or shape or anything behind to push off a line, to get rid of a line and to build negative space, you have to go out fast, in quick. little, and then crisscross it out. Here, stop. And don't hit every single edge. Like, just because you're doing this doesn't mean you have to go all the way. You can leave gaps. Like, what if I place down here and leave a little breathing room? Just to keep it, anything you can think of to modify that halo. Because the more you keep doing the same thing around, the more that happens. Another thing you can do is different saturation. And see, now you've created it without, like, the line goes in and out. You've got darker saturation. So that's something we can do. And I'm going to do it right here real quick. This is a good way to shift and change. And you can go over this. See, by getting rid of this line there, now the white is a positive space. The minute you outline, you lose the white as positive space. This is a ring of orange floating on white. There's no distinction. No white comes forward. There's just rings. But the minute I do this, now the white comes forward as an actual positive space. Bigger the brush, the better, too. So now I'm going to do a little bit with orange just to see. So I don't want to just keep going in green. Like, the minute you do something 3 times, stop. Take a look, assess. The human nature is to just keep in and keep going. And the key is switch brushes, have different ones available, different sizes. You know, in this case, you only have 2 hues, which is a great limitation. But by putting something here, I can feature that and pull that out forward. So I'm going to do a little. I'm actually doing dry brush partly because it works well on the Xerox. But see how I quickly did that? If you spend more time than that, then you get into trouble. Because it basically means you're treating a watercolor like a painting, or you're treating a watercolor like a Photoshop or a drawing or something. It's just not, it's just more spontaneous. This area needs, how do I get rid of this line? How do I get rid of this line? It'll be easier than getting rid of that one because this one is both orange and green. Now when I come here, I'm going to place it, pull it out. That's it. Place it, pull it out like that, you know? Even if I lose the shape a little, now look, this is positive space. If I feel too uncomfortable with that shape, do a quick adjustment. Boom, boom. I don't know what this was, it doesn't matter, but it looks like it comes forward, that's fine. Could even go do something like that so that this shape is in front of that. Now it looks a little uniform here, so I'm gonna do that and maybe a bit here. Because 1, 2, 3 orange. It just becomes intuitive after a while. But the main thing is let's get rid of these lines so that these areas can be featured. And then finally, put a little there. Main thing is I'm breaking up the uniformity. I'm going through and I'm breaking up. Anytime you go around a whole thing, you get in trouble. The key is if you've got something, go around part of it. Leave it alone, come back. Go around a little section of it, different thickness. Maybe traipse it off in another one. Dry brush in another. That is much more beautiful in a painting than doing this, which is the normal thing people tend to do. And then you're left with that. You have nowhere to go. But if you have this variation, then you can come in and do a little saturation. You can switch brushes. You can weave around. You can do technique. You can do a drip down. You know, and slowly you're building up to this experience. You don't need to tell us right away what's happening. This would be a good spot for a drip down. What if you had a drip down there? Now this looks awful. The paper's pilling and everything else, but I wanted to show you, you know, on your own. And then when you do Lost and Found line on this project, which is optional, not everyone does it. If you do, it has to be colored pencil and it has to be, or regular pencil, and it has to be sharp. And you don't want to try to do Lost and Found too much with a round brush. You want to do it with this. This is the final opportunity to fix things. Like, see how this line is still uniform? This is an opportunity to put a mark, traipse off. You don't want to go across. It's a mark, traipse off. That's a Lost and Found line. Let's see here. You don't want to define everything with it. Everybody loves to define when they get to the pencil. Now this, see how uniform this is? it's like a claw. It's like a candy cane. We don't want it to have that kind of presence. Up here by itself, it looks good. But when you see it here, it's like this, it's flat. The shape looks flat. And so this is an opportunity for that lost and found line to tuck behind and tuck behind, with or without reference to the picture. That's one way to break that up. I have to break it up regardless of my subject. At this point, I have to really look at options for that strange spot. I don't want to turn this into a color pencil drawing, but I'm using this lost and found line as an opportunity to break up that uniformity. So I can do it here too. And then on top of it, I can go back to my brush, because I'm seeing now that this was probably the thing that was the most troublesome. I didn't know till now. But see right here how this is still so uniform? If I go like this, now look at that. Now, regardless of the picture, so what if this orange peel was in front? Now this is in front, and now this reads as positive space. This reads as positive space. This is coming forward and back. This is a little bit number 6 shape, so I'm just going to go. Anytime something feels odd. Now I might have gone too far there, but this is kind of the process. Main thing is, have we broken up the wobblies? Have we had uniformity? There's some that could still be adjusted, but at this point I'd probably use just my lost and found. Anything to break up this uniformity. And the lost and found with a pencil is really the main one, because you go like this. Let's say something's there. You don't draw it like that. You make it thick where it hits, trail off, and then get thick again. Thick where it hits, trail off. And ideally, you lose it completely. Like let's say you have something here and it goes, disappears completely. This is the classic lost and found. It's a ribbon. It can be done with a brush, but in this project I mean it more as a last moment to fix stuff subtly and to redefine only subtly. But that's lost and found, and that's pretty much it. I wish this were real watercolor paper, because I would keep playing around, but even a broken line is better than a solid. And that means paint too. Like if you really want to outline something in paint, do a broken one or some kind of difference than that. All right, that's it. Long-winded.